It doesn't matter who we are. What matters is our plan.
All right.
You got an intro?
No, I don't have an intro. Well, you know what? We're recording, so... Welcome to the 37th episode of News Dump, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I am Aaron VanTuyl, joined as always by Eric Schwartz and Claudia Yaw, and it is Sunday, February 28th. It is not a leap year, we have established, and I don't have any good bits for the intro, so if you guys got anything good, this would be the time to throw it out there.
You have, on here, congrats. We as a state refuse to step backwards and will remain in phase 2. I don't know why you didn't just go with
I've abandoned it already. I had nothing to add to that. Claudia, you said you had a lovely weekend of playing Scrabble, and yet you are emotionally unprepared for today's podcast. Care to explain?
Way to call me out. That was great.
Thought the pre-show was a safe place.
Yeah, I told you that in confidence.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Schwartz, how was your weekend?
It was great. It was a moving weekend here at the Chronicle. The newsroom is switching such spaces with the designers and the advertising staff.
Yet again.
Yes, this has happened a couple of times.
It happened back in 2014. And before that, I think it happened in 2009.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that rich history of Chronicle furniture moving.
So if any of you listeners are regular visitors to the Chronicle newsroom, you will notice a slight change, although I doubt many of you are.
It's an upgrade for the news team, that's for sure.
But newsroom made out like bandits in this move. The offices are just beautiful, resplendent, covered in mahogany.
Lots of windows.
Mm-hmm. Very classy windows, so it looks great in there.
Previously, Claudia was in a closet, an actual closet.
Yes.
And there was a man trapped above our ceiling.
What?
I think we determined that the massive thunder sound that happened every 30 seconds just sounds like someone is up there stomping.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Might be the HVAC system, but I'm not sure.
I thought it was a man.
Sure. Oh, HVAC system. It is currently 55 degrees in the podcast studio, but yes, tell me more about this heating system.
Well.
All right, I guess we can just get into news now. Our first story. I think that our concerns were heard. Lewis County gets more vaccine doses thanks to the reporting of one Claudia Yaw. There have been still no answers as to why Lewis County did not get many vaccines in the first place. And local public health officials attributed the low vaccination rate to unfair allocations and a lack of transparency from the state, which prompted a letter from lawmakers John Braun, Ed Orcutt, and friend of the podcast Peter Abarno to Governor Inslee on Monday. The lawmakers expressed significant concerns and demanded answers about how the state is deciding who gets how many doses. Claudia, you reported on this.
Mm-hmm. And there have been some updates. There were some answers thrown out by the Department of Health since that story came out.
What... care to enlighten us?
They were kind of, I don't want to call them non-answers, but the response was essentially, our calculations are very complicated. There's tons of factors that go into deciding where doses get allocated, and those factors don't always neatly align with county lines, which I don't know how satisfying that answer is to some folks, but kind of the takeaway from this was we got doses, and they're trying to fix it now.
It was great reporting by Claudia, but it's kind of like standard newspaper reporting, too. She was going over data, I assume, and noticed that Lewis County was in last place. We ran that in a Saturday edition, and I can only imagine the county health officials had all weekend to just stew about that and get really upset, because I've heard people that have read the headline and be critical of county health, but I think what they're saying is
whomst among us?
You actually, last week, it's on tape. I had to stop you from ripping into the local health department. So I just thought, and I'm connecting dots that maybe shouldn't be connected, but she reported on that. By Monday, they had already met, the county met, and then later that day, the lawmakers wrote the letter, and then on Tuesday, we got the announcement that the additional doses were coming. But I think the impact went beyond then, because we immediately then had reporting in Clark County from the Columbian that they were like, hey, wait, we are very low on the list as well, especially for large areas. And so they had a similar process draw out down there. I know they had a meeting over the weekend with lawmakers and public health officials to figure out why they were getting it. So I personally think that your reporting made some other people take a look at where they were at in the line as well.
Yeah, and it seemed like the trend was like a lot of Southwest Washington counties. Which,
We're getting picked on.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, bullied by big
J-Bone.
vaccine. It was interesting to me, the reaction from the story that lawmakers and county officials would see that and take action. I don't know if there was a direct correlation there, but the idea that maybe there could have been was surprising to me. That people presumably more in the know than reporters or just average people on the street would see that and be like, hey, we are in last place. That was a little strange, but it is nice to see some action taken there. And do we know where, who is it? Like, if Lewis County, it's a zero-sum game. Theoretically, if Lewis County, Clark County, Cowlitz County are getting not as many doses as they need, who is getting the lion's share of these doses? Who's profiting here? From a health standpoint?
There was one county that was had double the state's average. I don't remember. It's in the story somewhere. It was not one that I expected. It wasn't King County.
I want to say it was Snohomish or Whatcom, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. But it's definitely not the more rural counties in general that are on top of the game.
All right. Well, it's glad to see. I'm glad to see journalism is still working in these parts.
Yeah, if you hadn't noticed that, we'd probably still be in the same spot. I mean, maybe they caught their own issue and adjusted from there. But then my question is, this goes back to that commenter from last week that was just like, somebody's got to be in last place. So I wonder who's in last place now.
Yeah, we did pass one county. So now we're second to last. Someone else is last. But, I mean, that's a good point of someone does have to be last. But I think in this case, we were at half the state's average. So I think it was a different situation of we're all kind of close in a close packed herd and we're just falling 39th. We were definitely lagging significantly.
And the other issue was we have a higher percentage of senior citizens here as well.
Yeah.
So we have more older folk anyways. And JHB actually, or Jaime Herrera Beutler actually addressed this topic as well with the state health secretary after that, and mentioned Lewis County a little bit, but she was largely focused on Clark County, it seemed like.
Yeah, she did mention us.
Yeah, no, we got mentioned.
I was kind of surprised that she hopped in and went to bat. Yeah.
Well, we will get to Jaime Herrera Beutler now because
perfect segue.
JHB's got challengers. People who are coming for the throne, as it were. 3 candidates have announced that they will run against Jaime Herrera Beutler, who has been in office for a while. These challengers are Army veteran Joe Kent, who said he was an America First Republican in a campaign video. He has spent more than 20 years in the Army, including 11 deployments and assignments in the Rangers Regiment and Special Forces. We also have author Heidi St. John, a battleground resident, who said she is a Reagan conservative through and through. And she added that conservatism in this nation has taken a backseat to the Democrats for too long. St. John has a social media following of more than 360,000. She also said she doesn't plan on making a career out of a House seat if elected, pointing to the inability of those serving multiple terms to achieve results during their tenures. She also said, Marxism is at the door of the United States and we need to say no more. And the third candidate is United States Navy veteran and Trump administration appointee Wadi Yakur. I think that's how I pronounce his name.
Yeah, I think that's right.
He said, censorship and socialism have no place in the United States of America. Free speech should be free. Our elections must be made secure, and our schools and businesses should be open. Of those 3 candidates, who are you the most excited to see on the campaign trail?
Is St. John technically an influencer with that big social media following?
She is.
I'd say so in a way. But she's a speaker as well, so it kind of crosses the real world online.
Okay.
She's also a podcaster, clearly a direct competitor of ours, although we do not have 360,000 followers.
Sadly.
I'm interested to see what Heidi St. John brings to the table here.
Yeah, and I always, because I've been through a few congressional races before, going all the way back to, going all the way back to JHB and her first run in 2000. She was elected in 2010, but the campaign began before that. And it really remains to be seen if these names are still being said a year from now. You're going to have a lot more people probably jumping into this race. They'll probably be, probably run the gamut. These three all seem to be kind of trying to position themselves as far to the right of JHB as they can, but that's not to say there won't be another more moderate Republican. Obviously, there's going to be a Democrat, probably Carolyn Long again, I would assume, because she's
going to trot her back out there, huh?
I mean, she's there, and she's done pretty well. I don't think she did as well in the last race. I'm not an expert, but there will be a Democrat, at least one. I would imagine more than one. And,
perhaps.
I don't know. I mean, it's just conjecture, and my random thought is that if you're Herrera Beutler, assuming she's running again, you want them all in there. You want to have as many opponents as you can in the top two primary, and hope that they all beat each other up and minimize, and that she could walk in, and it could be another time. But who knows?
And didn't we have a column on this that this district is very purple?
Yeah.
So all the folks who have announced their candidacy so far don't really align with that at all.
Yeah, it would probably be tough to get elected, just my guess. And I mean, it was, we will get to it, but it was Brian Baird, a Democrat for a long time before 2010, and he just chose not to run. It's not like he was defeated. He stepped away, and Herrera Beutler won the race there. I think that was the Tea Party days, I'm pretty sure. Not that she was aligned with that, but
no, yeah.
I know you don't want to eat into your precious Tales of the Take segment, so we're not doing it too much right now.
We'll cover your boy Brian Baird shortly. Next item, after initial bill fails, state Republicans reignite push to open schools with more aggressive proposal. The new proposal would effectively force schools to bring kids back into classrooms unless the governor, secretary of health, or local health officer says not to. The new bill, according to Centralia Superintendent Lisa Grant, takes away local control even more so than the first. And John Braun again lambasted the state's teachers union, the WEA, for stunting the reopening process. So the question is, should legislators make this call, or do we feel like, maybe this is more something for health officers to take care of?
You asking for our personal opinions on that?
Well, yeah, I'm not just asking into the wind here. That's what you guys are here for.
I kind of like the current model of a county health officer, making that because you have a doctor doing it. Just my opinion there, but my opinion is no more important than anyone else's. I will say, Braun and Inslee aren't too far off in that they both want teachers to go back to school, which is a change for Inslee in the last month or so. It's just all about tactics now, where I think the Republicans kind of want to make it happen, and Inslee's just, hey guys, can you get in school, please?
You want to go to school?
But at least they're in agreement as far as that goes. I think there's no villain, and a lot of teachers don't want to risk it if they don't have to.
I think we could find one if we had to.
They don't want to risk it if they don't have to. I think maybe at least our local Republicans have seen school go back in session here in Lewis County with minimal results so far.
Yeah.
It would be nice to get them in school. It's been a long time.
I agree with you on the leaving it up to a health officer. I mean, if you have a health officer and they're not getting a very big say in whether or not it's safe for kids to go to school as a pandemic wears on, then why have a health officer? That's kind of what they're there for.
Yeah, I'm just me again, but even a state health director, if they make the determination that it's safe or safe as it is anywhere else, then I've heard the argument too. If you're not in school, there's lots of other ways you can get the virus as well. Yeah. So it's not like it eliminates it. You've got parents still out working and kids just at home, and you got your the other health impacts there, mental health and things like that. But yeah.
What you mentioned of Republicans kind of being on the same page as Inslee.
How about this? Same book. Different page.
It's so interesting because they had this media availability this week that I quoted, and a lot of Republicans were really commending Inslee and saying, yes, we agree about this. And then, 30 seconds later, after you think, oh wow, that's so interesting. Maybe they are in agreement more than we thought.
Unity.
Then Braun was like, I personally am comfortable opening absolutely everything right now. So it's like,
There's the
these
divide.
there's the difference. Oh my goodness.
I think Inslee announced earlier in the week 2 additional testing for schools as another way of maybe perhaps luring them. But I don't know what you do if you're the teachers union either. If you've got 60, 70-year-old teachers in some cases that are telling you, look, I'm in your union and I prefer not to go back right now until there's a 0% chance I can catch this and everybody's vaccinated and tested. I get that.
And you can only take previous experience so far. Yes, we have brought back every elementary school kids somewhat successfully, but now DOH is saying, based on their new school modeling report, one, high schoolers are more at risk of having larger outbreaks, and two, all of these new variants are really, I use the word wild card in my reporting, and I think that's a fair term where that could totally
nobody knows
things.
which ways that's going to go right now, for sure. The union we're talking about is the Washington Education Association, and they put out a statement after Inslee made his announcement earlier this week about additional testing, and said, many educators, as noted by Inslee, many educators and students are participating in in-person learning and have been for months. We all agree that in-person school is best and that it must be safe. They continue to believe that educators working in person should have access to the vaccine, as is the case in 28 other states in the country. And then, people who don't agree with that will say, what about the grocery workers? They're out there every day and they're not first in line for a vaccine.
True. And maybe they should be. Maybe everybody should be first in line for a vaccine.
Yeah. I like to take that, create as much demand as possible and make it seem like something that is, very difficult to get, and more Americans will try to get it.
Yeah.
And also, that is the case currently, because there is a supply issue.
Yeah.
Crazy how that worked out.
I actually got that from Saturday Night Live last night. Dr. Fauci.
Congratulations. Speaking of vaccines, Lewis County residents 75 and older are now eligible for the mobile vaccine clinic. So if you need a vaccine and you're over 75 and you're listening to this, congratulations. You are with the times. And you can call to book an appointment, and seniors with mobility issues will be assisted by Twin Transit, which I think means they can just call a bus and they'll take them down to get a vaccine, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's great.
What was it at before that, Claudia?
It was at 85 plus.
Wow.
And they were really trying to make it a super targeted approach, and I think what ended up happening was they didn't get a ton of people calling in, signing up, which is unfortunate. So I think that's why they expanded it, and hopefully we'll get more folks calling in.
And the mobile clinics, when does that start? Is that this week?
It should start this week, yeah. That was their expectation after they got those 2,000 Pfizer vaccines pumped into Lewis County, which was interesting, too. It sounded like the county actually had to kind of scramble to figure out how they would deal with Pfizer versus Moderna vaccines. They agreed to take Pfizer because that was the only way we would be getting bigger allotments, and that required a lot. I think we're actually going to end up using a super freezer or a deep freezer from a Chehalis high school. It really required a lot of collaboration.
Well, as long as they put a lock on it, you don't want those Chehalis high school kids sneaking in there and taking shots between classes.
You have to ask this. You have to ask about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine coming on now.
Yeah,
what that does, since that does not have to. It doesn't need the deep freezer.
Yeah, and DOH said that we could, if that got approved, because FDA said thumbs up.
Yeah.
But now it has to get approved by the Western states thing. And they said as many as 69,000 could be coming into Washington this week if we do get that approval. So that'll definitely be a game changer.
What do you think the science is on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? Did they just take the two previous doses and just kind of shake them together? And what if you only had one shot?
I'm sure that's exactly what they did, Aaron.
Some scientist out there stealing my ideas. Of
Such
just
insight.
Mixing them together.
My favorite thing on the Johnson & Johnson, unless I read it, I know I didn't read it differently, was 100% vaccination against death, in their tests. That's how it was. That's how it was, or extreme illness. So it doesn't have the same high percentage as the other two. But
one Facebook commenter we will discuss later disagrees with you.
We should really we should think about running wiring in here's how the vaccine works. Like, here's the science behind it. Because we do keep getting, you're right, we keep getting those comments of conspiracy theories about them, and maybe our readers would appreciate that.
I'm sure they'd be moved by
instead of just podcast musings of, oh, maybe it's just someone made it in their backyard. I don't know. Maybe it's just Zima and cut grass.
Very dangerous podcasting. Yeah.
I did like the note of like, come get your second shot. I saw that headline somewhere and was like, oh, that's how they hook you. You give you that first shot.
Oh my gosh.
You just got to keep coming back.
Jesus.
Somebody gets addicted to the vaccine.
What is wrong with you guys?
A lot. Are you guys ready for Tales from the Takes page?
Yeah, sure.
Stoked.
All right. First up, we have Michael Wager, and you have some analytics on Michael, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Michael Wagar is currently, as of this week, the most read Chronicle columnist for the month, unseating fellow Chronicle columnist Brian Mitke.
Wow.
Before that, it was always kind of a mishmash of other columnists, a week here and a week there. Prior to that, though, John McCroskey, former sheriff, he sat atop the throne of most read columnist for, I want to say, 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
Congratulations, Michael, on your win in this popularity contest. I'm sure it's not the first you've won, and it won't be the last.
Was it the Retrumplicans thing? Is that what
No, it was
skyrocketed him?
all of them did really well. The only one that didn't do great numbers was the one about not wanting to have lead in our schools. Like, people they thumb their noses at that one. But they liked his
Drink what we want.
his Herrera Beutler take over the weekend. They really liked his not wanting to pay by the mile column that he wrote. And then Retrumplicans, which was his first foray into Chronicle.
Fiery.
He just walked in with a big swing on that one.
Yeah, he did.
He was ready.
So anyway, this week Michael is talking about Jaime Herrera Beutler and her impeachment vote and how it was appropriate. And he talks about the recent history of the 3rd District and former U.S. Representative Brian Baird, a Democrat, and ya boy. I'm looking at you, Schwartz.
Brian
Claudia,
Baird?
I understand he is not your boy,
Yeah.
as this would have been when you were in
Sorry, Brian,
grade
you're
school,
not my
probably.
Oh, geez. Brian Baird, yeah. No, I was a big fan of Brian Baird. It had nothing to do with politics, really, but as a young reporter, he was the most accessible member of Congress I've ever seen. You could just directly call him, and he would answer your questions about just about anything.
That's awesome.
And he had what seemed like an encyclopedic knowledge of the kind of micro issues in each of his counties. Like, I could ask him about flooding, and he'd start rolling off studies, and like he was just very, very good. I believe he had a background in psychology too, I believe.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
So the thing I always tell people about Baird is when I was a young reporter trying to cover him, I would, it happened twice that I could remember. I would go have this like hour and a half interview with him, and I'd be like, oh, you know what? I am going to nail this story. And I'd get back and start typing out my notes and realize I had absolutely nothing, and that he had talked in circles for the whole time.
Not great.
True politician.
Not great.
But he was a good guy, and I love how Michael approached this column because there are no shortage of Herrera Beutler hot takes right now, but kind of taking us through a history of the district was nice, I thought.
Yeah. Michael wraps up his column with, if you don't agree with her vote, you have to at least admire her for sticking to her guns. Would you rather your representative vote on issues with only an upcoming political campaign as the deciding factor? ? I agree. Yeah. Good take, Michael.
Yeah, another Brian Baird memory, because if you give me an opening on Brian Baird, I'm gonna take it. He famously went on, I believe, the Rachel Maddow show, and it was the Tea Party era. And what was happening is every time he had a town hall, they would show up and protest and kind of disrupt the town hall meeting, yell at him, stuff like that. So he said he wasn't going to do town halls anymore. His mistake came when he said that they used brown shirt tactics, and so that kind of caused a firestorm in his rural areas of his coverage area that maybe perhaps had voted for him, but saw him as more of a moderate. And after that, he announced a town hall at Centralia College, and it was the first town hall I can ever recall going to where they had the Centralia Police Department had a large contingent there, like along the stage, and he did it, and it was fine. He got screamed at, and like I've often used that experience as criticism of Herrera Beutler's lack of town halls before COVID.
She's held like, what, 2 ever?
No, probably more than that, but she's definitely shies away from them. But for the same reason, she thinks she doesn't need to do them in order to reach constituents, and that they're more just an opportunity for disruptors to come, turn it into a scene.
Wow, Baird's use of terminology was clearly ahead of its time. So are you done with your Mike Wilbon-esque name drop segment?
No, last one was Baird was one of the few Democrats, and at the time it was viewed here as a positive. I don't know how it would be viewed now, who supported the surge strategy in Iraq, which you might remember didn't go so hot.
All right. We will now move on to former most popular columnist Brian Mitke. He writes about his column was titled "Unleash Your Inner Child," honoring our state's George Bush. Those are two separate. I don't want to say colon or semicolon because I always get the two mixed up. But there's a comma and a dot there together, whichever one that is.
That's a semicolon.
Semicolon honoring our state's George Bush. So he talks about George Bush, who was a black settler who settled in the area that we now know as Tumwater, establishing a homestead in 1845 along the Deschutes River. He does not cover which President Bush he was named after. And he and his family found success as farmers. Shaking your head at that?
That was a dumb joke.
That was
awful.
Bad. He and his family found success as farmers, loggers, and mill operators. As more settlers came into the territory, the Bushes were generous with those in need, and in 1852, Bush found himself surrounded by new American immigrants who were in desperate need during a famine. And most notably to me, he wouldn't sell to speculators, but he gave food and seeds to folks who were truly in need.
Yeah,
a true idealist. Mm-hmm. I like how he worked.
Yeah, as I'm sure Mitke wrote in here, I remember his story is very similar to George Washington, founder of Centralia. Similar type thing. George Washington gave out lots for people to move into town, create Centralia. I've always enjoyed that history.
It was a great story.
Yeah.
I can share like a almost terrible thing that happened on the opinion page.
Oh gosh.
His headline in the print edition is just "Unleash Your Inner Child," and we only have access to a very limited number of cartoons, and one of them is Gary Varvel, very conservative. So the cartoon I had on the page, waiting for Brian's column, it says "Changing Terminology," and then it has 3 pictures of kids in cages. It says Obama's immigration detention center under one, Trump's kids in cages under the other, and then Biden's migrant child facility. And so I put the column on the page, and it didn't click right away that I had that cartoon above "Unleash Your Inner Child." Yeah. It's just, anyways. So we went with an old cartoon of kids being bummed that it snows and they still have to do school.
Oh, that's much more appropriate.
Yeah, and they worked out well for everyone.
Our other columnist this week that I put on the list was Bill Moeller.
Oh, 2 weeks in a row.
Was "A Wandering Mind is Activated Again." And as usual, Bill Moeller talks about some stuff he remembers. And I, for one, cannot stop reading Bill Moeller's columns in a Grandpa Simpson voice now. I think I wouldn't say it improves him, but it's a lot of fun.
He definitely. I'm sure this headline's been used before because he tends to use that one quite a bit. He's very popular with a segment of our readers. I enjoy the look back, especially when he's like looking back locally. He was writing a little bit this week about his time working at KLA and his involvement with the Evergreen Playhouse.
Talks about the moon landing a little bit.
Yeah, did he kind of suggest it was a hoax a little bit?
I think he was just joking about the general belief.
Yeah,
okay.
He was.
I couldn't get a read on that sentence.
No, I know he didn't mean to. I can almost guarantee that. But I think he was saying more how they were broadcasting like visualizations of what was happening in real time.
Of the Mars rover, the new
one. And I mean, I don't...
He was like, lends credence to the fact that the moon landing was fake.
He was a paratrooper, so presumably he is familiar with air travel in general. I'm sure he believes in the moon landing.
Well, Claudia hates space. I recently heard that. She hates outer space. Not
it's a
this
hot
space.
take. It's a hot take. I got a lot of shit for it.
Wow.
It's just silly, It's so silly.
Like that it's there?
Just that people care about it so much, Why do we care about it so much? Who cares? Let's stop putting money into it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the last part of that, but space is like, look at all the stuff that could be out there. There's aliens.
I think if you took a look at your life and what technology you have, none of it would be where it is without
that
the
is
space
totally
program.
not true.
I think it
That
would
is
be there.
so not true. We've invented like a ballpoint pen accidentally by going to space.
That's not technology.
That's it.
What about satellites? Without
this
space,
is-
you'd have like an AM reception on your cell phone.
Yeah, but we could develop satellites without also developing a whole sector of people who are like, oh, we should colonize Mars. I think we should just colonize Mars.
Oh, man. All those
I've
dummies
never heard
working in the aerospace sector.
I just think it's kind of
Dear
silly.
NASA, get a real job. Do something useful.
Yeah, Reggie dragged that out of me.
I mean,
All right.
a quick look here. Artificial limbs, insulin pumps,
Okay,
dust
that's pretty sick.
busters,
That's pretty sick.
Dustbusters.
Dust
those are
buster,
important.
wow.
solar cells.
I'm really glad we spent millions of dollars.
Solar
on that.
cells.
The Roomba,
I mean, do you
probably.
want green energy or do you want to move to Mars? It gets one or the other.
I want green energy.
Oh man, see, I love space as much as she hates it, so that's why it's painful to me. Favorite
Claudia, do
movie
you
is
not like
Apollo
Star
13.
Wars either?
No, I hate Star Wars. Oh my
man.
god. Why are all the scenes brown?
Because it's dirty in space.
I don't know. Why did they have to
Tatooine.
do that? It's like not pretty.
Oh my goodness.
I feel
My
like
little
if-
girl brain can't comprehend it. That's what's going on.
Neither can my little girl brain. So
Schwartz's favorite movies are about space and baseball.
yeah, my favorite movie is about space trying to kill 3 guys. Apollo 13. Mm-hmm. Classic.
Yeah, it's fine.
Armageddon, another classic.
Interstellar.
That one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Freaking space.
All right. Business
believe
feature
this.
roundup.
I don't know. I'm still pretty fired up about how much Claudia just likes space.
What if we went to space? What if we didn't?
Brandon Hansen, friend of the podcast, and I have a long-running joke where we imagine that there used to be a caveman space agency where they tried to see how high they could get someone.
That's pretty funny.
Like when did it start?
That's a good
Trying to
bit.
get people up as high in the air as possible.
The first person who tried to go
I
to
feel like
space.
it was like shortly after they maxed out the possibilities in like air balloon travel.
Started. It all started with
there's-
the pogo stick.
There's got to be a better way.
My mortal enemy.
Yeah, people who are not in the know, a pogo stick once knocked out some of Claudia's teeth.
Really screwed up my whole face. Can
It was
we
last.
get back to the news? We
last
learned a lot
weekend.
about me.
All right, business feature roundup. Let's play something. A toy store has a final home in Centralia. Well, it's a final home. They've had several different storefronts, and they are excited for their new location, which is on North Tower Avenue.
It's 109
Centralia.
North Tower Avenue, correct.
I liked that the owner said they really try to encourage folks to actually play in the store.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was sweet.
my kids do it all the time, or at least we did over in their Fairway Center location. Never made it out to the Napa Vine one, but yeah, there's nothing like it in Lewis County for sure. It's got huge selection of toys, but not only that, if you want something they don't have it, they'll get it for you. If you're not a super internet savvy parent, it's helpful. I mean, not like me. I'm super savvy thanks to NASA.
Yeah, Claudia, it looks like they've got some
Moon boots.
some spaceship toys. So if you want to go over there and kick those out of a child's hand,
They've got like a little, I don't know if they have it set up now, but they have like a whole kitchen restaurant area that if you're an adult looking for toys, your kids will definitely just entertain themselves there for that amount of time. That was all pre-COVID though, so I don't know how much they do that now.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I can't wait to
kids
go
are
check out
dirty.
the store.
The only thing worse than space is kids.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah. You know, I can
We're
agree
on
with
the
that.
same page.
Not on space, but kids. All of them except for mine.
Next item, King Street Cove begins offering live entertainment at a reduced capacity.
I didn't even know this existed.
I've seen the building there, and I have. It's like a Jewish temple, I think, or used to be.
Yeah, it used to be
Yeah, it was a synagogue.
synagogue, and had a large local congregation that slowly moved away or died out. I think for the most part, but it's a nice looking building. I mean, it's right over there by the Centralia College campus.
The space sounded super rad.
Yeah, they sound like in fully open times they'll have food and drinks downstairs, and then you can come sit upstairs. And right now they're just doing donations for whoever's playing. So it's if you're comfortable getting out there, I think that'd be a great place to go.
Yeah, the owner, James Kaiser, said last week we had about 22 people here, and it was awesome. It's kind of an open mic thing until we get some steam up. So, yeah, if you have an act you want to try out, get over there and, get on stage and see what you can do.
There was another aspect I liked about it because I've thought about this when there's live music in a bar, and a lot, huge chunk of the people there wished there wasn't, and you just got this guy or gal pushed over to the corner. So he said, when you're trying to sing a song you wrote and there are darts going on and pool tables, people yelling and football games, we're trying to make a nice music environment where people can sit back and enjoy and have a glass of wine. So.
Yeah, that sounds great right now.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I don't know of anything similar to that. They've partnered, or they tried to partner with the Fox Theater for some live stuff, and they said they're open to doing that again. I think last time they were about to launch that, COVID hit, and so they couldn't really realize that. But it'd be nice to have those two venues, within walking distance.
All right, next item, Nia's Ice Cream offers sweet treats sourced in the Northwest. This is over at the Twin City Shopping Center? Fairway Center. This used to be Baskin-Robbins. It was for, 30 years probably. Shane and Marin Marlantis are the owners, and sourcing ingredients from the Pacific Northwest is their top priority. They purchased the shop in 2014 when it was part of Baskin-Robbins, and they went independent in July of 2019. They've got over 40 ice cream flavors sold by the scoop, pint, half gallon, a gallon, along with shakes, smoothies, cakes, sundaes, coffee, other sweet treats.
They one-upped Baskin-Robbins is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they went from 31 to 40 flavors.
Yeah, take that. That's rad.
They specifically say in there, too, if you have a flavor you would like to try, even if they don't have it, they will get it one way or the other. There was a guy that really wanted good cinnamon ice cream, which sounds awful to me. No offense to anyone, but
it's not my favorite.
No.
Have you had Talenti's oatmeal raisin cookie?
Is that a flavor?
Yeah, it's a ice cream.
Never heard of it.
10 out of 10.
I don't like raisins in my ice cream.
What's your favorite ice cream? You can only have one ice cream for the rest of your life. What is it going to be?
Oh, salted caramel probably.
Really?
Yeah, I like salted caramel.
Classic.
What about you? You're not a big sweets guy.
I'm a vanilla guy.
Oh, cool. Yeah. There's the door.
It's the best kind. I don't know why anybody tried to, perfect it beyond that.
Most ice creams are based on vanilla, and then they add things to make it better.
Well, yeah.
Mia's looks cool, though.
Different.
Mia's looks rad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Thanks for bringing us back.
Yeah.
I've been in there a couple times. It's good stuff.
I saw, this isn't a business feature that we have, but just it's fun. Right nearby Nia's, where Figaro's Pizza is going to become another Domino's. So I don't know if that means the Harrison Avenue one is closing down or not, but that's the only Domino's in Lewis County, right? The one on Harrison.
Yeah, I don't think there's any in East County or anything.
No, I don't think so.
Big things happening in Lewis County.
We're getting another Domino's.
So
Domino's,
what's your
sorry.
favorite pizza in Lewis County? Tiki Tap House for me.
Yeah, I think it's Tiki for me too.
I haven't been there.
If it depends on if I want to go sit down and eat it, I'll probably go to Tiki. If I'm just getting a pickup pizza, Papa Pizza's always really good too.
Oh, and Jeremy's. Don't they have some good pizzas?
Yeah. Ty loves Jeremy's Pizza, so I get that a lot.
I've not had it, but I heard it's great.
It's pretty good. And our last business feature, the Roxy Theater in Morton finds alternative means to boost morale and movies to resume March 19th. The Roxy Theater is a small local theater out in Morton. It's been out there for quite some time.
Claudia, why don't you tell us about this? Because you went out there for that story.
Yeah, the folks at the Fire Mountain Arts Council who kind of run it, they were just so sweet, and they were telling me about how after they closed, they just felt like their mission statement was to keep morale up, and so they tried all sorts of things, including soliciting members of the community to come and perform in front of the closed doors. And so
that was a sensation on Facebook.
Yeah. And so they showed me videos of the children's theater director, her son tap danced in front of the doors in a hazmat suit, and then the president was in a Santa suit playing saxophone, and they had different bands come in front. It was just really cute, yeah. And it sounded like they are going to be reopening movies really soon, and they're going to re-up this children's play that they had to cut off halfway through in the summer, Mary Poppins, which will be cool.
There's really, like, you mentioned it in your story too, but I cannot think of another community Morton size that has a community theater
Yeah.
that has plays or movies.
Yeah,
they
and
have
one that's so
both.
active, like children's theater, adult theater, improv, like joint teen and adult community theater.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
The Forks Theater burned down back when Little Mermaid was new.
Wow.
Oh,
That's like
jeez.
30 years ago.
I don't know. It could have been a re-release. That's
Guess-
just what was on the burnt sign.
Guess what character I played in The Little Mermaid in middle school?
Was it the lobster?
No, close.
Flounder?
It was Ursula.
Oh, jeez.
I
Dark
killed it.
villain.
Wow, yeah.
I like the bird the most.
Was there a bird
There's a
in?
pelican.
Yeah,
or
I
a
can't,
seagull
I
or
can't
something.
remember his name.
Okay.
Yeah, seagull.
All right, you guys ready for some People's Champion of the Week action?
Yeah, did you unilaterally select one again?
You can argue me if you'd want, but I, for one, support our local fire department.
Okay.
People's Champion of the Week, Scott Weinert, captain in the Riverside Fire Department, for saving a guy who ran into trouble kayaking in the mighty Skookumchuck earlier this week. Scott was out there in a what looked like some kind of wet soup contraption.
Yeah, that was fun. That was our front page story for the weekend edition, and I was just sitting at my desk. I had just stepped away for like 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the little icon pops up, and it's like, the Chronicle is live covering a river rescue, and I had no other information than that. So, like the public, I clicked on it, and Jared Winselberger, our photographer, Nightcrawler, didn't really say where they were at for like a really long stretch.
Yeah.
And
Just
so
look at this river.
we couldn't figure out where he was at. He eventually got it, but it was I would say that was the most interesting live video we've done. We do a lot of it, especially now. But he got the rescue from start all the way to finish, and then a few little interviews at the end.
It would have been funny if Nightcrawler was like narrating it and shouting questions like paparazzi.
Yeah.
How'd you get in the river?
Well, he did that a little bit at the end. There was some of that. My concern the whole time in this like 30-minute video is because it was a steep embankment, and Crawler was right there, like literally holding his camera over the shoulders of the rescuers, as he was just going to tumble in, and this newspaper would never recover.
We would have had to call.
Oh, you're saying if Crawler did
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Oh, I
if-
thought you were saying if the rescue went wrong.
Yeah, well, if
That would
Crawler
also
fell
be-
in and all of a sudden the live video is just like white water over the top
Oh
and
my
like
God.
him trying to get out.
Engagement. He would have had to call Cron Air to lift him out.
He was probably up the entire time. But the photo too, I had some misgivings. I asked a few people their opinion. The guy was coming back, so they tied a rope to the middle area of the river where he was at to secure him. There was a rope on him, and the water's only about waist deep. But at one point he tripped, fell, and he went under. So the photo is very dramatic, and it's got the guy's arm reaching out and the Riverside guy's arm reaching down. But it was like just a flash of him being in the water like that. So I thought, like, do we do that or not? So I ended up running more photos on the back for context that show kind of what was going on. But yeah, so I think actually I like yours. Your choice is good, but my People's Champion of the Week is going to be Claudia Yaw.
Oh, for getting us vaccines.
For her work on the vaccines and everything else. But that's I thought that was very important reporting that literally will result in locals, likely seniors, but frontline workers getting a jab that might keep them safe.
All right,
I've
great.
never been People's Champion of the Week before.
Wow.
So
Well, half.
nice.
You're half.
It's
Okay.
it's
All right.
disputed.
It comes with an asterisk.
Your banner goes halfway up to the ceiling, and we'll just dangle there.
This week's Sirens Banger of the Week. We have two entries that were just actually right next to each other on a Sirens log. The first one is drunken backflips for TikTok. I assume this was Jared.
It was Crawler.
Just after 8:20 p.m. on February 24th, a caller requested that an intoxicated man reportedly tried to do backflips off the wall for a TikTok video to be trespassing from the 1400 block of Northwest Louisiana Avenue if he returns.
What a buzzkill.
He's just trying to, get
Did he
those
do
clicks.
it? That's my question. Did he get one? Did he finally get one?
I
Let's
don't
go on
know.
TikTok. Let's check it out.
If he had
look
gotten
for it.
arrested, this would be a lot more fun because we could then go find his TikTok. I'm pretty
He's
sure.
got a TikTok video of himself getting arrested with like sound overlays. The police are after me.
That's not how TikTok works. Come on, get with the times.
I have never been on TikTok, and I will never go on TikTok.
I won't even click the links. People always send me links, and I'm like, I don't want to go down that. I'm too old.
Being sent to TikTok is a gift, and you are choosing not to click on them. You're really missing out.
I would rather stay on Facebook where everyone hates me. It's very angry and writing about how awful I am.
TikTok's rad.
The honorable mention for Siren's Banger of the Week is called Just Being Crazy. And again, on February 24th, a caller reported that a man in the 1400 block of Northwest Louisiana Avenue, is this the same guy? Yeah, they're only a couple hours apart. A man was yelling at them not to look at the moon, flashing people, and just being crazy. No arrests were made.
This has got to be the same guy.
Not to look at the moon. Claudia, was it, were you involved in this?
I was not involved.
Yelling at people not to look at space?
Stop.
Don't look at it! It's silly!
It's not important.
Just silly.
Don't give it the dignity of your sight.
Yeah, and those are our Sirens Bangers of the Week. We also have plenty of Facebook comments, but I will preface this with a complaint from my father.
Oh, boy.
Who was on Facebook when I was out at their house last weekend, and he saw a Facebook Live video of a football game, and this was Sunday morning, and he was very upset.
Oh, my God.
Live. This is live. It's also the only football he's watched.
It says was live. He didn't read it close enough.
Well, anyway, he was very upset about
he's going to see
football.
that river thing and be like, oh, no, I got to get down to the river and save this guy. I'm just kidding.
I'm certain it's the only football he's watched in my lifetime, at least. And he was doing it ironically.
Wait, so his request was to stop doing any live postings
all? I think he was more upset with Facebook mislabeling things that are live videos that have already happened.
It says was live.
Well, anyway.
As for him not watching any football, well, I can see why. I can see why his son's disappointed him.
Well, you know what? I've got some jabs for you, for courtesy of our commenters.
Oh, I know. I already read them.
So
I'm trying to take away their sting.
Pretty gnarly.
There's a guy upset.
Just go top to bottom. Let's roll through them.
All right. On a story about tribes highlight climate crisis in front of U.S. Senate, the first comment is, makes you wonder what kind of favors these squeaky-wheeled tribes want now. You'd think they'd be smart enough to think for themselves, but nope, there's something they want for supporting something as fake as a vegan burger. Vegan burgers are like a real thing. Like, they exist.
But he doubled up on his topics there.
Yeah, he was just out to own both the Indians and vegans, apparently. The next reply to that was,
especially vegan Indians.
Congrats, sir, on your comment. You're a great way to start us off, scraping the bottom of the barrel. Let's see.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, on the transfer station recycling changes that take effect tomorrow, the comment is, come on, Chronicle. The guy in the picture has been retired for over a year. And at that, that's not even a picture of the Lewis County transfer station.
You know what? You know what's going to happen right now? I'm going to go take that photo off.
That's
a valid concern.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a valid concern. My bad, listener. I'm very sorry.
Your comments matter, people.
In real time.
You see something,
we'll give you some credit because, how often are we going to go to the transfer station to take photos?
Well, not very often now.
We got to use file. We got to use file.
Recycling.
I was going to go with one with a Christmas tree as well because that was the last time we had went out there. And, I'm going to admit, I do stretch it sometimes trying to find file photos because online, if you're sharing something and it automatically populates with an image, you're going to get a really old, the Chronicle 125 anniversary, and I try to avoid that if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, my bad, and I'll do better.
Thanks for the comment.
On a story, state Republicans reignite push to reopen schools with more aggressive proposal. I believe this was yours, Claudia.
It was.
Comment, raise the bar, Chronicle. No politician deserves to have a local marketing arm in the form of the local newspaper. 3 thumbs down.
3 thumbs down. Dang.
Yes.
This guy needs to see a doctor.
So this was the one where I read the comment this morning, and I went back and reread the article and really did some soul searching. but yeah, as we were talking about earlier, just because the Chronicle covers a ton of Republican initiatives, bills, whatever, doesn't necessarily mean we're slanted. It means that all of our lawmakers are Republicans, and those are the ones we're reporting on because that's our duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Jaime Herrera Beutler as well. I've gotten that criticism for, well, why not have a side from the Democrats? And it's like we're currently represented by a Republican, and that's where a lot of the news is generated from.
Yeah.
And I'll bring this one up too because I know people are interested in it. We were recently purchased as a company by a Republican city councilor who's now a former Republican city councilor. So I've already seen that there's at least some people who are willing to look for like any sort of evidence that would go in line with their thought that is influencing us. And right or wrong, I just would say it comes to that, I don't feel influenced. So, but yeah.
Well, and your story of that reader being upset and then saying, well, I'm going to unsubscribe and then subscribe to the Olympian.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, great. Well, that's a publication in a county whose lawmakers and whose like other local politicians are more liberal, so that's the coverage you're going to get.
And the Olympian also has greater direct access to state politicians who are predominantly Democratic.
Yeah, and then you can take a more statewide approach. If
we just started making it our business to just tell you everybody what Olympia's politicians were doing, like
then
at all
we would have a lot of coverage of liberal ideas.
Yeah.
But we live in Lewis County.
Let's see. On the Meet the Challengers for Jaime Herrera Beutler story, one of the comments is, these candidates are easy to contact. It's curious as to why the Chronicle did not contact them for interviews rather than regurgitating what is easily found elsewhere. And the comment to that comment was, because this newspaper is a joke and filled with bias.
Jeez.
Haven't had good reporting in years. Mouthpiece for the rich, well-connected city folks and not much else. Schwartz, as a rich, well-connected city person, how do you respond?
Well, I'm just the mouthpiece for them. I take a weekend trip up to the hills, once a week, and
do you mean Seminary Hill?
Collect all of their thoughts and give them their gold editions of the Chronicle. Laced with 14-karat font.
That story was also a Battleground jam, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Rick Bannon. He writes for us. We call him a contributing reporter. If you look at the staff listing, he does all of our coverage of Inslee, most of our coverage of Inslee, and then some Herrera Beutler stuff from time to time. But no, as far as not contacting him, at this point in the game, the election is not until late next year. We had 3 candidates coming out and announced pretty much all at the same time. And if we wanted to, certainly could do a big in-depth interview with each of them. I thought it was more appropriate in this case to just have kind of a roundup on this is what we have so far.
Yeah.
Because if you start committing to a full, 1,500 word piece on every candidate before you know how many candidates they're going to be, you could find yourself in trouble because you won't be able to honor what you did with the early candidates. So right now it's going to be a roundup.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of an overview of here's who is announced and giving people the information.
I thought he did a good job too with using just the resources from their sites and their statements. I got a much better understanding of the candidates than I had from other outlet stories. Up to that point, the Seattle Times had their own story that I believe was in their Saturday edition. I read it this morning. And that had a lot of good stuff in it as well, including Trump's former campaign manager. I'm mispronounce his last name.
Corey Lewandowski.
There you go. Corey Lewandowski saying specifically that they're coming for her. And that she's caused a lot of consternation in the last couple of weeks. So they're going to find someone. So eventually the Republican machine will pick one of these Republicans, I feel like.
Or even a different one.
Or a different one, yeah.
Did the reporter for that article reach out to everyone?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that this comment would have a lot of validity in a different situation later on in the election cycle.
Yeah, for sure.
If these candidates were not maybe as fringe. I don't know if I'd call them fringe.
Yeah, and I know
pretty
you don't.
far left in a purple district.
Yeah, I know you don't mean that as like derogatory. It just they're all trying to occupy the exact same space is the reading of it, which is to the right of Herrera Beutler, but still Republican, and hopefully get Trump support. Yeah, like that seems to be what they want.
And one last note on JHB for the day. This comment came on Michael's column. It just says, "Stop posting about her." So. There you go. Stop posting about...
Maybe we should just stop reporting on our U.S. representative. I think we should just not pay attention to her.
What's she done anyway?
One note before we move on from Herrera Beutler was the Seattle Times did broach new candidate territory that we have discussed, not on air, but we have discussed. This is to quote the Times, the field of challengers to Herrera Beutler may grow. State Rep Jim Walsh, Republican from Aberdeen, said he has been asked by hundreds of constituents to run, but he's staying out of the race for now. Walsh said he had a frank discussion with Herrera Beutler after she voted to impeach Trump. He said he was doubly puzzled when she went further and encouraged colleagues to testify about Trump's failure to rein in the January 6th Capitol mob. Quote, I think the discontent is strong with Herrera Beutler. I'm kind of getting the feeling it is not going to be short-lived.
I can't believe he called her Frank. That seems very rude.
I know. Hold on. It goes just a step farther, if you'll bear with me. After this story came out, he had something to say about this story.
Not Jim Walsh.
Oh, jeez.
He shared it. Let's see if I can find it here. If I can't find it quick, I'll quit. Yeah, he said, almost didn't link to this story, but it's newsworthy for most people in Legislative District 19. Meanwhile, please keep in mind the next regular congressional elections are almost 2 years away. I'm laser focused on representing the 19th in Olympia. That's my job, and there's a lot to do in it. It's not funny, Aaron. I don't know why you're laughing. Anyways, he had a lot more to say, but it was basically like he's going to try to focus only on local elections and not mention any of the federal ones. But we'll see how that goes.
So, given what you've just said, he's definitely going to run.
I could see him running, for sure.
I just like the terminology and some of the things he's saying. And, like, yeah, of course he's going to say that he's focused on this current legislative session. I believe he is.
Well, yeah, if he didn't say that, it would be silly.
Yeah, but yeah, when you mention that hundreds of people have asked you to run for something, you are preemptively supporting yourself in that campaign.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's...
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I do. I think that's fair as well. I also don't think he's making that up. He's among the folks who show up at these events with hundreds of people.
He is at a lot of things.
So it would give him an opportunity, and I'm sure Herrera Beutler's impeachment stance would come up as well. So I don't think he's lying or being disingenuous about that.
Yeah, and the Venn diagram of the people that Jim Walsh speaks to at these events and the people who are upset with Jaime Herrera Beutler for her stance on the impeachment is nearly just a dark circle.
Yeah, sure. I can accept that.
One last Facebook comment on the story about getting your second dose of the vaccine at the fairgrounds. Oh, there's a story I was thinking about.
Should we even say this out loud?
The vaccine actually causes more people
I feel like we shouldn't even say it out loud.
to get sick, die, or have problems. It's worth pointing out now that 500,000 people,
Yeah.
500,000
Let's
people
censor
have
Aaron.
died, and I don't think the vaccine has killed that many, at least. She goes on to say, I watched a video of a woman that was a nurse, and she kept shaking and bouncing up and down while she sat down. I don't know what that has to do with the vaccine. She needed someone to help walk with her. She said it was the vaccine because that was the only thing she did. She was crying in her video and praying for God to help her. And then she talks about how she would never put anything in her body, and vaccines have mercury, and some have baby fetus cells. Some have alligator cells.
What the heck?
So your baby alligator fetus mercury vaccine
I would
is
take
not
that.
getting into her body because, well, you know what? I
Little
believe
alligator. I lived in Florida for a bit, y'all. I'm down. I've eaten alligator before.
I believe if you took a vaccine laced with mercury, baby fetus cells, and alligator cells, you probably would get sick and eventually die.
I asked doctors for the ingredients on vaccines, and they personally told me they can't give that out.
I don't believe that either.
This is what these are the things that make me think we should run, like,
What's in the
science
vaccine?
stories of like what's in it, like that's a public service that we could totally do.
Yeah, maybe you could talk to some local doctors and get them to weigh in on just the ingredients of the vaccine and kind of a like, hey, help people understand and make their own decision.
Yeah.
Not that I endorse not taking the vaccine because you believe something you saw on YouTube. By any means. I'm not saying
I am encouraged by the number of people who do want to get the vaccine. And I've had a lot of people in my own life who started off, and they weren't anti-vaxxers or anything, but they were a little reluctant. And I think I told you guys on this very podcast that my family thought I was crazy for wanting the vaccine. Mm-hmm. Well, 2 of them already have it. They got both doses.
Wow.
One
was a teacher with the tribe. One works
great.
at the hospital. So people warm up to it, and I think once it's offered to them and we've got more time, I think the great fear of not being able to reach that percentage is getting smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, that concludes our Facebook comments of the week. Thank God. Anything else you guys want to add before we close it out?
Well, I've got a list here of other things that wouldn't be possible if not for the space program, but I will show that to Claudia after we're
Ballpoint
done.
pens.
Save that for off mic, yeah.
Improved radial tires.
All right.
Landmine removal.
Claudia, anything
Enriched baby food.
Would you like to rebut any of these claims about space or maybe walk
I'm
back your
set.
take?
I'm never gonna walk it back. It's just so silly, you know?
All right.
Artificial limbs.
And with that,
LASIK.
this concludes the episode of News Dump. Thank you. We'll talk to you again next week.